this list. Some are quite old and some are very young, and you're the youngest one. So, with that said, for anyone that doesn't know who you are, describe yourself.
Thank you, Ronnie, for having me.
My pleasure.
So my name is Kristy, as you all know. I grew up here in Beirut in Ashrafiyeh, and I left Lebanon at 18 years old to study at the London School of Economics. My passion has always been politics. I was the kind of girl who wouldn't leave for school before reading the newspaper cover to cover. I kept a log in my school notebook of helicopters flying over my school, which was facing the Rizq hospital, because I was obsessed with like data and military stuff. So anyway, just to give you some context, that I've always been the curious, noisy kind of person. And the important thing is I've never accepted politics as a fact of life. Some people look at different things to blame for how they live their lives. I always felt that politics had something to do with me feeling uncomfortable in Lebanon. Like, you know, we were playing at school, we hear bombs. You try to cross the street, Pierre Jmeil, Allah yarhamo, gets shot in front of you. So always politics affected our childhood, and I wanted to study that in depth. Quickly, I realized that I couldn't work in politics because, you know, it's underpaid, not enough opportunities, no hope of coming back to Lebanon. So I worked in the private sector in London. I worked for Standard & Poor, focusing on ESG data, sustainability-related topics. And then I did my master's at Accusations in Paris in sustainable development as well. My focus for the last 6 years has been working with oil and gas companies on their environmental strategy. So I'm really passionate about ports, about oil and gas companies reinventing themselves in the energy transition. But still, my real passion lies in politics. With the formation of the new government, the election of President On, I got a sense of renewal, and I found the little girl who was so intimidated by politics, but also intrigued enough to be curious, asking questions. So I reconnected with my inner child in a way. And everything accelerated when the National Bloc approached me to be their candidate for the municipal elections. And here we are.
If I could be blunt and ask you a direct question, what takes someone your age in their prime when they're starting their career abroad, and what brings them back to Lebanon at a point in time that's very, very delicate and uncertain? And also, what makes you want to get into municipal elections when you have, I think, a lot of opportunities abroad that you're saying no to?
Yeah, 3 points. Number one, consultant vibe.
Yeah,
you know?
Seriously, that's actually funny. Now I know what made you a consultant.
But also your question, I think, is on the mind of everyone around me. So it's important that I get the opportunity to speak about it. Number one is purpose. When you wake up in the morning, you work for the Port of Rotterdam, you work for international oil and gas companies, you see them generating returns, etc. You feel a deep burn. I could feel literally physical pain in my body that I couldn't find a sense of purpose. I want to work for my country. I see the port of Beirut in front of me every morning, and I feel completely helpless. Working for those companies, I lost a sense of purpose. So that's one. And it's the most important thing when you wake up in the morning. It's not your paycheck, in my opinion. It's a sense of purpose. Second is...
You just defined my whole life. But yeah, no. Sorry, interrupted you. Second
is, as you said, we're at a situation almost like below zero. It's not like we're starting from scratch. We're starting minus 100. Mm-hmm. This is where the opportunities for looking at marginal improvements are extremely visible. So you can start with quick wins that are immediately going to make people feel that you're going from minus 100 to minus 50, minus 40. So you can really start measuring improvement because of the situation we're in today. And I love metrics. And my Substack, I actually have the scorecard thing. So when you're in a situation where everything is so bad, showing improvement is not hard.
you see your role right now in the
Yeah.
marginal improvements at the municipal level.
Mm.
I'm just curious, why is it at the municipal level right now and not, let's say, national politics
Yeah.
a year
So
from
that
now?
takes me to my third point. I believe in grassroots politics. And the city of Beirut has so much to offer. There's not one person that visits Beirut that doesn't want to stay here forever. But unfortunately, the conditions that we live in here, it's like, it's counterintuitive. You want to live in a city that you don't know what you're breathing. You can't afford to live here. You can't build a family, raise a family here, etc. But still, you want to stay here. So I want to fix those things, and those things don't get fixed when you are playing in the political arena of parliament, of alliances, of you give me that, I give you that. I think, and again, why I ran on this list specifically, I didn't say, yes, I want to run and then figure out where I'm going to plug myself. I said yes because the National Bloc approached me specifically with this list of names, these kind of profiles that I want to learn from and work with.
Then, with your permission, since you've opened up the political party that
Yeah.
you're part of, what attracts you to the National Bloc as opposed to any other party that perhaps would get you further right now in terms of where the climate is?
I agree, right? It could be very appealing right now to go with the Kataib or the Lebanese forces. They're taking wins everywhere. Their ministers are in government,
Yeah.
impressive people that I respect and admire.
Yeah.
But this doesn't build long-lasting change. I am young, I have time, I have energy, I have patience. This is why I decided to enroll in the National Bloc from 2018, because it's a secular party. And I think that my generation is tired of playing on religious belonging. And the only way we're going to start seeing a healthy political spectrum in the country is if we start with those kind of parties. Like if you, again, I'm going to maybe sound theoretical, but if you look in any other European or Western countries, you have left and right spectrum and parties that position themselves on that spectrum with different agendas and values, not only religion. And for me, it's important that people realize that democracy is about knowing where you stand on a spectrum of values, on a spectrum of issues. And this is something that I have the patience of seeing coming through in Lebanon. It's maybe going to take 3-4 generations, but it's worth a shot.
So is it fair to say that it's two things? You're attracted to the National Bloc, and because of the National Bloc's positioning in politics, you found yourself on the Beirut Madinati list. So it's, in a way, it's through the National Bloc that you're here right now running.
Yeah.
Beirut Madinati, and I know that, I hope I remember this right, you're 25?
26, turning 27, but let's say 26, for the sake of the campaign.
26 turning 27, which means 9 years ago you couldn't have run for municipal elections. Do you have any recollection of Beirut Madinati when it first ran?
Of course.
So what was your experience then as a teenager?
Yes, I'll tell you. So I was 18 actually. It was my senior year. It was May, and I had an offer from the London School of Economics. I was studying like crazy for my French baccalaureate, but I remember I would stop studying at like 4 or 5, and we would go to AUB, listen to the students talking about the garbage crisis. Beirut Madinati got a huge push because of the garbage crisis. Right. And we were talking about ideas, and I started feeling, wait a second, maybe I don't have to leave Lebanon to get engaged in politics. Maybe there's a place for me here. There are people that think like me, that want to think about solutions and that want to be creative in their thinking. And that's when I thought, to hell with the LSE, but actually no.
Did you feel any disappointment at what happened to Beirut Madinati 9 years ago?
Yeah.
Could you describe in your words why Beirut Madinati today has a chance compared to 9 years ago when it seems like the momentum then was higher?
Higher, okay.
And not just that, there's so many lists right now for Beirut. And a lot of them are the old Beirut Madinati crowd that have splintered.
Yes.
So why is it that there's in other words, are you able to see that there's a higher wall to climb this round, or do you think that circumstances change?
Yeah. That's a great question. So we're going to answer with numbers first, and second on perception, right? So in numbers, in 2016, Beirut Madinati got 35% of the votes,
Right.
whereas the winning list got 40%. So it wasn't far.
Right.
And independent list got like 2%, 1%. So
Yeah.
the way I see it today, and to the perception aspect, sure, in 2016, because you had Nadine Labaki and all those celebrities supporting Beirut Madinati, it might have seemed that there was a momentum, but it was, in French, we say poudre aux yeux, you know? It was like throwing sprinkles in front of someone's eyes. There was, in my opinion, and I was maybe too young to remember, but there wasn't real substance. The difference today, we are backed by independent MPs who have formed a coalition in parliament. We are talking about more substantive issues. We're getting a bit, I'm not going to say political in the sense, you know, dirty politics, but we're able to formulate a program that is beyond, okay, we want to recycle. We're starting to talk about what are the prerogatives of the governor of the Baladiyeh.
Yeah.
We're starting to talk about why are we backed by MPs. So it's a more healthy political debate than it was in 2016. And then second, back to the numbers, hopefully the 40% that the last 2016 got is going to get lower because of dissatisfaction with the situation today. You didn't have that in 2016. And Beirut Madinati to 2025 might do like 38% and the other do, let's say, 37%. It's going to be very close in my opinion.
I like the way you're describing it.
Yeah.
So the independent MPs support, do you think that compensates for the, I don't know the French phrase.
Poudre aux yeux. And there's actually another, I don't know if you know Edmond Rabat.
Yes, I do.
He wrote on Facebook today that we're no longer bisou nounours.
What is
Bisou
that?
nounours is like a fluffy teddy bear. Like he was saying that in 2016 the civil society were like teddy bears, and now we see more politically organized and sharper in our messaging and also in our personalities. You have people with a credible track record. Not to say that the previous, of course not. You had Brahim Naimli running. Everyone was extremely credible, but it's a more solid narrative in my opinion. Now, how successful are we in the communications aspect of it? Less so because it's so short notice, but you know, we're working on it.
That is a communication advantage that I've never heard. So you're describing it better than anyone I've heard in Beirut Madinati.
Nice.
Yeah, because I've been thinking about this. You're right. Ibrahim Naimne went from being a municipal list candidate to becoming an MP. But the clear, the way I saw it, the clear disadvantage is that groups that, or not even groups, let's say individuals that should be in this list are on other lists.
Like?
I can imagine negotiations takes time and not everyone can see eye to eye on everything. But I do think individuals backed by Kata'ib and Beirut Madinati individuals should be able to get along at the municipal level. That was the winning recipe for Nawaf Slim entering the Sarai. So for me, it seemed it should be easier at the municipal, yet that didn't happen. That's where I see, and your numbers do resonate with me. The 35% number may actually go down as a result too. It's not a guarantee that it goes up. And the 40% will go down too, you're right. But I don't know if those numbers will go down at different rates.
Okay.
This is where I get worried that, and you're right, it's last minute.
Yeah, it's very short
last
notice.
Yeah. But
and no one knows how the Sunni are going to vote. That's the big question mark.
That's where the 40% may actually go down more than we expect.
Yeah.
But we'll save that for later because that's the stuff I'd really like to get in with you. But your journey to Beirut is, I mean, it's admirable that you're quitting a career abroad to pursue politics in Lebanon, where politics, you're right, it doesn't really, you may secure more financial security abroad by then doing this here. But if your passion is here, that's fine. Where things are days away from elections, do you feel like the voters are listening to you and hearing your message and are attracted to what you're saying? Or do you feel there's more pushback from people that they're just not interested, that they're tired of politics and tired of the same thing being told over and over too.
Yeah.
About reform, about restructuring, about municipal
Yeah.
stuff as well. Do you feel that there's a jaded audience, or are they actually engaged?
I'm going to tell you the great thing, we haven't heard any resistance towards the narrative we're presenting, in a sense that you guys are a civil society. No, I've never encountered someone hanging up the phone being like, again, you're selling a dream, I'm not going to vote, I don't care. People are extremely receptive, more than I would have thought, really. And that was encouraging. Now, where the diversion is happening, and I can speak in all honesty here, not to make it, religious or anything, but, I'm Greek Orthodox from Ashrafiyeh.
Not to make it religious or anything, but I'm Greek Orthodox from Ashrafiyeh. Yeah, that's how Lebanon works.
Yeah,
it's
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I have a label, yeah. And people from my community, which I hate because at the end of the day, we're all Lebanese. Beirut as a whole is my community. But, like you said, are wanting to do tashtib, what we were speaking about, striking names, to only go with 12 Christian names. Take the Christian names of the list of Beirut Tejmana and take few list of Beirut Madinati. This is where I'm spending 20 minutes a day per caller convincing them otherwise. And this is where I'm happy because we're starting to have a healthy debate. It's not why you should go vote or why those elections are important. This is a given from what I'm encountering at least. So I'm happy that we're getting into the details because this is what politics is about, right?
So the program is not being questioned. It's more the sectarian.
Exactly.
How are you able to tackle the sectarian stuff effectively? Because of that issue, which I think unfortunately will happen to a large degree. What is your winning argument?
I'll tell you again, numbers.
Numbers, yeah. Good. No, actually, numbers don't lie.
Yeah. So numbers don't lie, Ronnie. Do you know what's the percentage of Sunni voters in Beirut?
I mean, I'm going to take a wild guess. 70%.
Oh, wow. You're extremely bullish now.
60?
49.71%.
Okay.
So half, let's say half. But the voter turnout historically is higher than in other communities.
Sorry, I misunderstood. You're right. I thought voting percentage. Sorry.
Voter turnout, you're right.
Yeah.
But I'm speaking about eligible population to vote in Beirut.
Okay, then it should be something like 50-50.
So you have 500,000 of people eligible to vote in Beirut. Out of that 500,000, almost half is Sunni.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Now, we don't know how many are going to show up to vote. We don't know their thinking. It's a black box. But if you speak numbers specifically to my community and you tell them, even if all of the Christians vote for 10 candidates, the maximum number of votes we can get is 8,000, 9,000. If you're lucky, maybe 10,000.
Would you say that again so that just to follow the numbers, the maximum number is...
So if Christians vote for Christians,
right,
me as a Christian candidate, what's the maximum number of votes I can get from Christian voters?
Right.
It's not going to be more than 8, if I'm lucky, 10,000.
Yeah.
Based on demographics, right? So let's say I have 8,000 voters. To win, if you look at 2016 data, winning candidates had 40,000 votes. How do you get from 8,000 to 40,000?
Right.
It's the Sunni vote.
Right.
So we're really banking on convincing the electorate to vote for Beirut Madinati as a whole list. Because if we don't get each other's votes, and now I'm speaking in a give and take model, but at the end of the day, you should be convinced by the candidates, you should be convinced by the program. But putting all that aside, right? Now, if I'm going to work with the thinking of those who want to do the striking of names.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they allowed to do as many strikes as they want?
So basically, you as a voter, you're allowed 24 names. So you're allowed to give 24 votes. So on a piece of paper, you could write 24 names.
Yeah.
Some people want to go write 3 names, but they're wasting the rest of their votes.
And they're allowed to vote for only 3.
Yes, they're allowed. They can put 1 name.
Right. Yeah.
So let's say I'm going to go with their thinking. They love their candidates. They love the Lebanese forces and the Kataib candidates. They believe in them. They believe they should be in the municipal council. They're not going to get them there. The only way they're going to get them elected is if the Makhzoumi people, the Shia, the Amal, all of these guys, they can't stand each other in parliament and in real life, like I think we can all agree, are voting for each other. So if you're working with that thinking, why would Amal or Makhzoumi guy vote for a Kataib and FL, Lebanese forces, per candidate, and they're not willing to do the same? So if you want to go with the thinking that you want to get your candidate in there, you need to vote for the whole list, and you need to be willing to accept the consequences of the alliance you made.
So what are the arguments that you're hearing for not voting for the entire list? Why aren't they able to just say you're right?
They get to that point at the end when I tell them that the only way you're going to get your candidates in is if your whole list passes.
So
shit, I don't want the other guys there.
Right.
Or, this is one part, or they say, no, it's important that they're both there because it's going to protect our interests, etc. But this is a very small chunk of people, honestly. Now, if they do the striking, it benefits us because we think that we have a very coherent group of people with a common vision. We're able to convince people to put the list as it is. So if they do some striking, it's in our benefit.
So you're able to send this message in a way that's effective to people you're speaking to.
We'll see with the comments in the podcast.
Yeah, no, because it's interesting. You have an effective way of talking. So maybe that's the consultancy.
No.
So I'll leave this just for a bit to go into what could best describe the platform for Beirut Madinati. We'll get back into the more delicate stuff. But I like the way that you write your posts online. You make it easy for someone like me to learn about Beirut Madinati, not necessarily about you. So I could even read about short-term versus long-term, short-term plans versus long-term plans. And it reminds me of the old Beirut Madinati package. Can you describe something that you think is tangibly conceivable the moment you enter the municipality?
Yeah.
Something that you can point to and say, I can fix that if I get in.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that dramatic,
but
just something tangible.
Yeah. Two things.
Yeah.
One is a financial audit of the accounts of the Baladiyya. A thorough financial audit of what happened since 2008 to today, and documenting that. That's super important because otherwise there's no way we're going to get any trust in our ability to manage a budget, in our ability to raise more funds if we need to, and if we need to do private-public partnerships. How can we be trusted by a private company if we don't audit our books?
And sorry, this is to monitor the surplus and how it was spent. Is that the auditing? The reason for the auditing is it that Beirut Municipality had money? It
had a lot of money, and you're going to be I was at least shocked to learn that the municipality invested that money in 2007 in Eurobonds.
Right.
The municipality of Beirut was acting like a private equity firm.
So if I can go a little further into this, the auditing that you think is a tangible platform promise, how do you see that happening?
We're very fortunate to have 3 or 4 accounting experts in the Beirut Madinati list. So I'm going to trust them to build the roadmap for that. But in practice, it wasn't our mandate, right? Yeah. So to be able to start from a blank sheet of paper, looking at what happened before is super important. And that will happen by looking at all the receipts, looking at the bank account. Do we know how much money is in the bank account? I don't.
I've heard, I don't know if the speculation, $500,000 is locked in the banking system. The municipality, which could be an exaggerated figure, but that the municipality's money is stuck the way all of our money is stuck.
Yeah, and they're also saying that a lot of it was gone because of the devaluation. But
Yeah.
the main question we need to ask, why was the money in the bank?
Yeah.
I think the eBird institution recommends that 10 or 20% of the budget is left in cash reserves. With the Beirut municipality, it was 80%.
Yeah.
Why weren't they spending this money on infrastructure projects, on building rehabilitation, on education center? There's so many things they could have deployed the money for. But then, the second thing, immediate item we can work on, radical transparency, leveraging digitalization. This is super easy, where we have young people that are experienced in tech, setting up a website. Try looking at the municipality's website today. You can't find anything. Very easy website with what's our goals for the week, KPI dashboards, publishing any documentation that we are able to find as we move forward. First of all, you're showing a willingness to be different and a willingness to be transparent.
Because you've shown a willingness to actually be very persuasive. And I listen to you, and I'm not usually impressed with stuff I hear about promises and all that. But you're going big here. Financial audit is a huge task. And also, if you want to digitize the municipality, I think this is unearthing 100 years of Lebanese inefficiency.
Yeah.
Maybe even more. So these are huge, huge tasks. I'll be devil's advocate.
Yeah.
With your permission.
Of course.
Yeah. I'm in a friendly way.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. No, I feel I can with you. Why not start small with small promises? And small meaning they're not small to people. They're small in comparison to these huge, huge tasks, meaning sewage, the stench, the broken pipes that are feeding into the sea.
Of course.
The
lighting the roads, re-engaging the local police, for example.
Re-establishing the park meters and actually having an income that you can actually hold to account. Yeah. The sidewalks that are parked on, that are illegally used by commerce and restaurants and the like. Why not start there? Why are you going really big with the promise?
I got excited by those 2 points in the program, to be honest. Speaking with the rest of the coalition, and the economic plan for the Beirut port are for me, like the project that I would be the most excited to work on. That being said, of course, extremely low-hanging fruits that organizations like Rebirth Beirut and the likes have been working on for the last 5 years, or if not more, and we can learn from their experiences. But these are kind of things that are going to, again, get us quick wins, but are not going to change the fundamental way of working of the municipality. And I want to circle to a point we haven't touched upon yet, is decentralization.
Yeah.
So Prime Minister Nawaf Salam pushes a lot on applying the Ta'if Agreement points on decentralization. How can we give more power to the municipality if we're not transparent, if we don't know our numbers, and if we're not publishing everything to the public? So, of course, there are all those low-hanging fruits, but anyone that are on the other lists are going to tell you, yeah, we want to relight Beirut, we want to fix the traffic, we want to fix recycling issues. Those are very obvious. And we're 24 people in the municipal council, so we can easily get divided. But it's important that people realize that it's not only buzzwords, recycling, sidewalk, etc. And these are things I talk about on my Instagram. So it's important that we also get to the heavy topics that are really going to make or break the credibility of the municipality.
So you think going big is a better way of communicating with the voters right now?
Maybe not all voters, the audience of this podcast that are interested in, a bit more critical topics. But of course, when we're speaking with people every day now ahead of the election, we're talking about things like, why don't we have a local dispensary with medicines per local? This is again, or a after school activities funded by the municipalities for kids, for parents to have a break. Stuff like that are touches to the livelihood of people and are super simple with good planning and managing resources to implement, of course.
With your permission, I want to see if you can explain to me the problems that every municipal council faces with the Muhafez. There's an appointed governor, and then there's municipal council. And I think Beirut is the exception.
Beirut is the exception. Beirut is the only one with the Muhafez.
Right. And there's I may have read this on your blog. There's even a budgetary hierarchy.
It's insane, the number of signatures that,
Right. So this is huge.
Yeah.
This is not easy for anyone, whether they're coming from this list or any list.
Yeah.
That's a Lebanese problem in terms of decentralization and veto, which may be unfair. In other words, he's an appointed, there's an appointed governor and an elected municipal council. Do you wonder about what you're able to, let's say, talk about in your platform? And then can you imagine the governor just saying no? And that becomes the end. I worry that could actually be, should Beirut Madinati win, that would be the legal obstruction.
Yeah.
So is there anything there that you can talk about?
So Beirut Madinati talks a lot about the relationship it wants to have with the Muhafez. And I think there's a lot of sectarian arguments that are being used to scare us or scare different communities that the Muhafez has too much power. That's why we need to have all Sunnis, for example, in the council, etc. Yeah. This is just a symptom of a broken system, which was, and I think, by the way, the Muhafez has a great reputation right now. I've only heard good things about him. He wasn't able to work with the existing municipal council because the municipal council itself was fragmented. So if you have a municipal council with a common vision that is able to draw on public attention when stuff happens. So for example, be very transparent, say, we proposed XYZ project with this budget. The Muhafez said no. You start getting public attention and putting pressure on those kind of things. But this is all backdoor politics we're not exposed to and we don't hear about. But I'm sure, and maybe I'm naive, but with the right level of transparency, it could be solved. That's one. And then second, at the end of the day, we have a new vision and a new political will in the country. The Muhafez is appointed by the cabinet of ministers. I don't think they're going to appoint someone who doesn't want to work, who's going to veto everything. So let's have more hope that this cabinet is going to continue delivering on the great work they're doing and appoint someone who's going to be able to work with. I'm more scared that we get the wrong people in the municipal council. And that the Muhafez is taking all the decisions.
But fragmentation meaning individuals from different lists showing up at odds? Is that what you meant?
No, even the list that is running against us, Beirut Tijmana, is a collection of parties with extremely diverging interests. They're going to end up in the municipal council. They don't show up, by the way. They're not showing up to meetings. They each call on very limited projects. I want a street here and you take a street there. There is no common vision and long-term planning. So of course there are going to be diversions with the Muhafez.
I think this is a problem that can face any list, and the legalities are not in anyone's favor. Do you feel like it's Beirut Madinati's role to question the way things are set up? Are you endorsing anything to change the Muhafez relationship to Beirut, or is that just beyond the scope right now?
Look, at the end of the day, we are backed by independent MPs. They're in parliament. They have the power to propose laws. If they think, and of course with the head of our list, Fajid Darwish and others, that this could be in the interest of the Baladi and the people of Beirut, let them do their job. I'd rather spend my time building a digital app for people to pay their taxes and figure out which day their trash is going to get collected.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, now I'm going to try to dance between things that are perhaps feasible, like a digital app, perhaps, and things that are very difficult, like collecting taxes. Let me start with the latter. it's very difficult to collect taxes in Beirut. I don't think this is a Beirut Madinati issue. This is a national problem. Do you see a way to effectively enforce what is, in a way, the lifeline for the municipality, collecting taxes? And not necessarily just the standard stuff. It doesn't have to be just going after solidaire rent, for example. I mean, just the basic collection of taxes.
I'll give you an example that's not related to the municipality. It's the electricity. So, you know, EDL had a big problem. They weren't collecting money. So the now Minister Joe Sodji of Energies, okay, you don't pay, you don't get electricity. Now this is built on the premise that you actually know who's paying and who's not.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a problem on its own beyond collection. But let's go from the principle that you know who's paying and who's not. No taxation without representation. If you're not paying your taxes, maybe you can get your voting right revoked. This is what the Greeks thought about when they first thought about democracy. Now, of course, it's not my place or Beirut Madinati's place to talk about that, but this is just my idea. Now, in terms of what's concretely feasible, when you start having oversight, when you have a unique digital ID for everything, your taxes, your social security number, etc., it's easy to start monitoring those things. I haven't opened all the technical issues of tax collection in Beirut, but one thing I can tell you is that there's a lot of laws that protect the municipality and allows it to collect taxes. For example, you know the tax you pay when you register a car? Your car registration.
Yes.
It goes to the Ministry of Interior today instead of going to the Baladiyya.
Right.
But in the law, the Baladiyya is allowed to enforce this. So let's start by enforcing those kind of things. And when you're enforcing new, if you want, it's not new, it's there, but it's going to the Baladiyya instead of the Ministry of Interior, you can implement it in a way that works from the get-go.
So you think digitization is the way to do this?
How else?
I'm curious. I don't like to use the word culture, but it doesn't seem like it's a natural thing here to encourage people to digitize. Even when, even the Minister of AI and diaspora, Kamal Shhadi,
not diaspora, displaced.
Displaced and AI, which is a very strange group. He's made it a priority for him.
Yes.
And I don't know how far he's gotten. But do you think that that's the way to do it, is in a way,
look,
just destroy the inefficiency altogether?
At the end of the day, people want things to work, right? Let's say I'm a law-abiding citizen. I want to pay my water tax. I want to pay my electricity tax. I want to pay my habitation tax. I want to have a direct debit system as I'm accustomed to abroad, or I just want this bureaucracy heaviness to be lifted off my shoulder. If digitalization is the way, then this is the solution. But let's remember what is the root cause that we're trying to solve. People want things to work. Then the second thing, people want to know where their money is being spent. Yeah. So when you start seeing the money in front of you, meaning you start seeing lights being lit again, you start seeing policemen in the streets keeping you safe at night, you're more incentivized to be a law-abiding citizen because you want to contribute to your city getting better. And then if you're not, then this is where we rely on the rule of law, right? So the Minister of Interior, the Minister of Justice, they're the ones who need to punish or hold accountable those who aren't fulfilling their citizen duty.
Going back to the beginning, is this why you think someone like you today has a better shot? Because there's a new government and there's a new appetite? Mindset. So that's what you're leaning on.
100%.
Yeah. I agree with you that you can't get one done without the other. And you can't get a municipal level platform done without the government agreeing in principle to what you're doing. That's the issue of the Muhafez and all of that as well. But I'm glad you see it that way because it's refreshing for me.
Okay.
You're able to see the shortcomings of only focusing on one.
Yeah.
So I think you're right.
Now, these guys are only here until June. We don't know what's going to happen after. The municipal council is going to be here for 6 years.
Right.
But hopefully it set the tone that things can change. And then if we were going to think that way, no one's going to run for anything anymore in this country.
Right.
If we just stay paralyzed, it's impossible to get anything done. People don't care about this, about that. We won't know until we try. And no one tried.
Well, I don't know if that's true. I'd like to push back on this. I'm not giving them credit for anything other than attempts. These ghost projects that are just dead. Do you think of that as wasted attempts, or is there something there that just wasn't implemented for reasons that maybe go beyond a municipal council?
Yeah.
And this has to do, of course, with the economic crash and everything that has happened the last 6 years. But these ghost projects to me are not, for me, they don't seem to be bad initiatives. They're just dead. They haven't gone forward.
Yeah. Let's maybe take a step back from the municipality and think about, the way Lebanon has been run for the last 10 years. In my opinion, and this is looking at it from a macro level, there was a willingness for Lebanon and Beirut to stay paralyzed in inefficiency and slowly die at the profit and at the expense, at the profit of a certain group with certain allegiances outside. Now, again, macro, there is a willingness to take Lebanon out of, and we should capitalize on that. And these are circumstances that are outside my control, that are outside everyone's control. But when they come, it's a very narrow window of opportunity. If we don't put our feet in the door now, that door is not going to open again.
So I'm going to get into the projects a bit and get your opinion on them, but you opened the door to something else, which I promised myself I would never talk about in this kind of setup. But you opened the door and you kind of invited both of us in. There's been accusations that I think are unfair. They're being lobbed at Beirut Madinati, and I think it's not true.
Such as?
This is the Hezbollah list. Oh. And you hear this in places that you wouldn't expect.
Good to know.
It's good to know, yeah. And I don't subscribe to this. And I don't think it's a fair way of characterizing Beirut Madinati. But for me, the government established list, the parties list, is more in favor with Hezbollah, the way I see it, than Beirut Madinati. So do you share that sentiment?
There's one guy on the list. I forgot his name. I think Farouk something.
Which list?
The Beirut Tajmana list.
Beirut Tajmana, yeah.
Who has pictures of him standing with the poster of Sayyid Nasrallah. So we're not making anything up. It's stuff that is public.
Yeah.
And that's there, right?
Yeah. So
I don't want to get into this, things, but the thing that I'm hearing is not that we're the Hezbollah list. I'm hearing that we're pro-LGBTQ, that we're snowflakes, that we only think about fluffy issues, etc., etc. I've seen those kind of trolls on X, which if it only takes one person to open the Beirut Madinati Instagram account and see that everyone more or less either has a corporate background or a civil servant background. So it has nothing to do with the kind of issues that they're saying we're covering.
I agree.
And this is dangerous, those trolls online.
Yeah. No, and there's a lot of propaganda against this group always, but I agree with you. The group does represent Beirut in a healthier way, in a more diverse, and also professional standard is quite high. Even the youngest candidate is actually quite accomplished. So let's get into some of the projects.
Yeah.
And digitization is an issue on its own.
Okay.
But you mentioned you wanted the mobile app for the Baladi. How do you see that happening?
Okay, so fun. People, I geek out on this stuff. Okay, you need two things. One, gamify it. And don't you need to gamify it. So, for example, people take a picture of a lamppost about to fall down and collapse on a car. They get
points.
Yes, they get points. But for example, they might get credits for their next parking spot. for the park meet. So you start making people feel incentivized to contribute to public life in a way that is completely foreign to Lebanese people, in my opinion. They had the picture of Terbiya Madaniya. Maybe we all suffered through high school to pass our brevet to do it, but it's not ingrained in us. We don't have a civic duty, a sense of civic duty.
Yeah.
So you need to trigger that in people. How do you do that? By incentives. You send us a picture of I don't know, a jura, or you take it upon yourself to fix the rasif in front of your house, the sidewalk. You get benefits, for example.
And then you get the Beledi police smacking you on the face and taking your phone. Do you expect? No.
Why would you?
I mean, this what you're describing
Yeah.
is the opposite Beirut I live in.
Okay.
So
How do you see it? Like what?
I'm not saying that is what's going to happen. That's how I imagine Beirut, which is part of the problem.
Yeah.
How I see it is not necessarily as bleak as you do, but if somebody's taking photos with their camera at municipal failings, I see the municipality is showing that person a ticket.
But that's a mindset thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you come at the Majlis al-Baladiyya, at the municipal council, with the approval of the Muhafez and support from higher ups, that the mentality we want to bring in is extreme transparency and reward those who shed a light on shortcomings, because we want to address them. That's the thing. It's a mindset. Again, we're not addressing shortcomings to point fingers and be like, this guy didn't do his job or this.
Right.
You go in with the mindset that we're here to help each other realize what's wrong and address it in the quickest possible way. And if someone else has the resource to fix it, like all the NGOs that have been covering the work of the Baladiyya for the last years, let them do it and let them also benefit from certain incentive schemes as well.
So it's incentivizing work.
Yeah.
In a way. Never heard anyone describe the municipality. This is really interesting.
It's an idea, right?
But I mean, I can see that playing out if everything plays out in your favor. But it's still hard for me to see that kind of civil engagement. It's alien to me.
You start with the younger generation and it starts, again, it's going to take years.
Yeah.
And this is why it's important to have young people who have the patience to see things through.
Yeah.
You're not here at the end of your career to just get a PR hit, whatever. No. There are structural changes that need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the point of the app. And then also people having a say in where their money goes. Yeah. So in Barcelona, actually, they started a forum through an app where people would say, okay, let's say we have a budget of $5,000. Where should this money go? $5,000 can plant X number of trees. It can fix the sewage in one neighborhood, for example. It can, okay. Then people vote. This concept of citizen forums where we have a space for exchanging ideas as citizens is also completely foreign. This is what the Saura in 2019 little bit brought, is that it brought public spaces, debate, ideas, brainstorming. This is what a healthy democracy looks like and what a municipality should be about.
Let's go there. And let's say taxes are being collected in a way that's reasonable, and there's an app that's encouraging people to report failings, and then they get points or they get some incentive. Let's say things are moving in that direction. The municipality then has to deal with things that I think it's ignored for decades. And these are really it's the urban planning of Beirut that has been more or less let go of. How can you see a massive project like Solidaire and the municipality and the next few years of Solidaire's life until 2029, I think, is when
2029.
Is when it's supposed to be given back to the municipality. How do you see Reinvigorating what is, in essence, a ghost town now? How do you see
it's not a downtown anymore. Downtown is supposed to be the place that brings people together.
Right.
It's the center of the city. It's the heart of the city, and it's not happening today. That's
it's huge.
It's a huge
tackle,
topic, but it's on the program, right? Not labeled as Solidaire per se, but about how can the municipality benefit from its property? So the municipality of Beirut has a lot of assets in its name, buildings, land, etc. They've been giving out these properties, which are taxpayers' money property, without any transparency, without deciding what was the basis of that, without getting anything in return. So, of course, without the private sector, nothing can be done. But putting things up to a proper process, evaluation of, let's put a bid out. What do you propose? What do you propose? How much will the municipality get in return? And then assess, right? So it's very important that we capitalize on the 2029 deadline, if you want, to plan ahead from 2025 to 2029. What's going to be the plan when this hits, if you want? And I don't have an answer on how.
So it's really looking to the end of Solidaire rather than intermediary. I don't know a creative way to actually bring life back right now. And
I can tell you one that I think is something, at least we speak a lot about at Beirut Madinati. Sometimes we forget that Beirut is a coast city.
Yeah.
We forget we have a sea because you don't have any place like, let's say, for example, Batroun, you have a nice walk next to the sea. In Sur, people do picnics on the beach, etc. You start thinking about how do you bring back a basic sense of belonging to those public spaces and start reclaiming them with starting a souk, for example. Why don't we have a market? Things like this for people to start going back down to those spaces and reusing the fact that we're on the sea.
So you see the role right now, it's less to do with trying to get commercial activity going. It's more to do with how to manage public space.
Exactly. Let's say the Baladia has empty buildings that are downtown, that are empty. We're supposed to be offices. They're empty. The city of Medellin in Colombia repurposed empty of public offices into community centers. So you don't need to make it about a zoo, about a coffee, about X, Y, and Z. You can make a community center where you organize talks, you have a donated public library, you can start a art center with people who volunteer to give workshops. People want to have a sense of belonging and people want to give back to Beirut. They've been channeling this energy through NGOs. But if you have a way to channel that in an official way, in an official way through the Baladia, I'm hopeful that people are going to show up to the opportunity.
I like the way you're saying it. In other words, just do your job.
Yeah.
The NGOs have done enough. Do your job. That includes, I guess, street lights. That includes many things. Even the traffic signals that are working now in Ashrafi, those are NGO initiatives. Is that the kind of stuff that you can see happening in the short term?
Learning from them is number one thing that is low-hanging fruit. Why were they able to do it and the Baladia can't? They're going to tell you, because they have funding, they got donations. The Baladia has money. And the financial audit is going to show if not and stuff. I don't think money is a problem. Problem is execution and at scale. You start learning from the way they ran their operations. You start looking at the suppliers they used, who are hopefully low cost, etc. We're not paying commissions left and right to the uncle of my blah, 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 blah. And then you start having a functioning city again.
So the low-hanging fruit from the NGOs, build on what they've done already. And let's say this happens and you're able to get some short-term projects going. Beirut Madinati has talked, and it's not necessarily the list, but members on the list have referred to the port. Reinvigorating, reconstructing, just in other words, not the mess that we have. Finally figuring out a way to have a memorial site, but also bring the port back to life. I think it's Suham Naimni that's talked about it the most, because she did, she's done a lot on the port, on the silos and the port in general. But
Loved
other people,
her episode with you back then.
But she's been talking about this for years.
Yeah.
That's a long-term project. That's not short-term. What can the municipality do about the port?
I'll tell you. Again, numbers keep shocking me. This is an easy number.
Yeah.
0. 0 is how much the Beirut municipality gets from the port of Beirut. So the port of Beirut, think before the explosion, because now we're in a different situation and we're not got into the explosion. But if you think before that, you had a functioning port that is leveraging the infrastructure of the city, using its road, causing traffic, causing pollution, and not one single dollar was going into the Baladiyeh. But it's on it's the port of Beirut. Beirut municipality should benefit somehow from having the right of putting a tax on the port or having some sort of economic benefit or indirect benefit. What do I mean by indirect benefit? For example, creating a logistics hub around it, a bunkering. So now I'm getting geeky because in shipping is my my field. But ships need fuel. That's called bunkering, and it benzene.
Okay, yeah.
The ship needs benzene. This needs a specific type of technical skills to be able to do. Create training centers for people to get jobs in the port of Beirut. Not only customs. The port is not only customs and army and logistics and Minister of Transport and Minister of Interior. The Beirut municipality has a port, and on its ground, it can benefit from it.
Has that ever happened, that the municipality was able to tax the port?
I haven't looked at data before 2008, but in the since 2008, no.
No, that
0.
would, yeah. I can't. I guess that's parliamentary decisions. That's not municipal. I get.
Maybe it's a chicken and egg problem. Like someone needs to bring it up.
Yeah.
Why would the legislative power bring it up if the people of Beirut are not asking for it? They'll be shooting themselves in the leg.
So the bet is really not on necessarily doing something right now. It's setting it's in a way, it's betting on wide-scale reform to allow these kinds of ideas to take hold.
That's one, but then two, and this is something in our program, of course, the aspect of preserving the silos until accountability is there, putting out a tender for a memorial. All of this can happen in partnership between the right ministers and the municipality. But again, the municipality is here for 6 years.
Right.
So it has more bandwidth to take on those long-term projects than ministers that are here in an unstable. So let's keep the legal aspect and the security aspect of the port to the ministries, but anything related to things around it, like jobs, cultural center, history, memorial, etc., that can be taken on by the Baladiyeh.
Makes sense. Partnership makes sense. And one more difficult question, and then I will wrap it up with lighter subjects, hopefully. The issue of empty apartments or vacancy and the rent rates that
insane.
They're insane. Even post-crash, they're still insane.
Yeah.
Actually, rents are continuously insane in Beirut. A lot of Beirutis have left as a result. I think both of us probably have friends that don't live in Beirut for that reason.
Yeah.
And hence, Greater Beirut has become just an urban jungle.
Yeah.
And that's really the story, why the rest of the suburbs look the way they do. These are Beirutis fleeing pricing.
Extensions of Beirut.
Exactly. And it's become a nightmare. Okay, so then you have, I remember it was something like 30,000 empty apartments, if not more. I don't remember. The last time I checked, it was roughly 30,000. It may actually have gone up. That's crazy. And then you have rent rates that are insane. Is there a way for the municipality to regulate some of this, or even have municipality housing, public housing?
Okay, problem of space on that one. I'm going to rely on an urban planner. But let's talk about the basics. There are some cities in the world that have a higher tax rate on people who own a flat in a city, but that don't live in it or that don't rent it out.
Yeah.
Now, we have a problem in Beirut is data. We don't know, like people are For example, I was a resident of Beirut for when I was studying abroad and when I was working abroad. So you have a data problem, but let's say this data problem is fixed. You can tax people who own a flat and are not using it in any way.
Right.
That way, they're going to have an incentive to rent it out. You're going to have more supply. Price goes down. That's one point. Second point is a dedicating housing tax. So I'm not sure about the practical aspect of how it would work in Beirut. But again, if you have buildings that are underutilized, you tax them.
So taxing empty or vacant or whatever, making it harder to keep property empty.
Locked in, as investment.
Right. That's a municipal enforced thing that can come from the municipality.
To the best of my knowledge, a housing tax is in the prerequisite of the municipalities.
Okay.
That's to the best of my knowledge, but I might be wrong.
It sounds like it is, but it's just, I'm always curious why, even after disasters, years and years of chaos and failings, rent is still high in Beirut.
We don't have subsidized housing in Lebanon.
Yeah,
this is a completely foreign concept to us.
Subsidized housing, is that municipal level too, or is that more urban, more public works?
That you start creating inequalities between regions if you start doing it in Beirut and not somewhere else. But also, Ronnie, the thing is, why are we putting so much pressure on Beirut? Lebanon is a small country.
Yeah.
If you start having a good transport system and a efficient way of commuting into Beirut, why do you want everyone to be a resident of Beirut?
That's true.
We don't think about making the accessibility into the city part of something very basic. So people can start affording other places to live that are 20, 30, 40 minutes away from Beirut and commute in without the hassle. And then that also you will start seeing prices drop because you have more supply and less demand.
There was a time where Charles Hello was not a abandoned waste of space. It was, and that was meant to solve a lot of these problems. People can park, take public transport from the port and go to their work and then leave without congesting the city and allowing for the mobility.
You don't need a complicated metro system. You need big parking space at key posts at the outskirts of the city with shuttle services.
That's Charles Hello. That never happened. But that's, I appreciate the way you're able to go through a lot of subjects at once. I'll wrap it up with something that resonates with me because you brought it up. It's something that I think needs to be discussed. It's the political void of, and you mentioned it earlier, I think you said it straightforwardly, you need the Sunni votes. And the Sunni votes are numbers, and you're a numbers person, hence there's a problem there.
Opportunity.
Opportunity, yeah. So actually, that's better said, right? There's an opportunity to address a problem. That opportunity, in my opinion, was a missed opportunity in 2016 when the future crowd, the future movement, could have simply endorsed civil society and let it be their domain. In other words,
I have the same problem today with the Lebanese forces and the Kataib. Why did they have to put themselves on the same list to protect the interest of the Christian? If you want to protect the interest of the Christian, truly, it's in your interest to empower independent Sunni, independent Shia movement that are going to lift the whole list up. You vote for Beirut Madinati as a list where we have true representation, 12 Christians, 12 Muslims, and you let the people stand behind the civil society.
But I mean
Sorry.
No. I mean it even in a more vulgar way. Let bigger parties do bigger politics.
100%.
Let the Lebanese forces or future, which is more or less extinct, or any group that wants to get into parliamentary issues and sectarian issues and whatever, let them go to parliament. Leave local politics to the most well-intentioned people that don't have an appetite for this stuff. They want to do
This
good.
is project management. We're talking literally about getting your hands dirty, wearing sneakers and a jumpsuit and fixing a sidewalk. It's not politics. Why do they want a seat at the board?
Yes, and even the groups that maybe feel more comfortable sometimes with civil society, unfortunately find themselves with the bigger groups, like Kataib that did in recent list formations. But this opportunity to reach out to voters that have been disenfranchised for a while, I don't know if Brahim Naimne is enough to carry that weight. I think he carries some weight, but I don't know if that can be the only way to do it. As an MP, I mean. I'm wondering
you say that, but the numbers, again, they don't lie. Brahim Mnaimne got a bit north of 13,000 votes in 2022. Let's assume 10,000 vote for the list as it is, because, they're his partisans, etc. That's 10,000 votes. But anyway, putting Brahim aside...
That's a good answer. Yeah.
But putting Brahim aside, Faji Darwish, the head of our list, is an extremely humble, educated, and respected man in his community, and hopefully in Beirut as a whole. And by showing that we have a leader that we're able to give and take with, that shares our vision, you stop thinking about it as the Sunni head of the list. He's the head of the list because he deserves to be, not because he's Sunni, not because he believes in a tree or in whatever, So by getting around the fact that our list is united behind this candidate, you start shifting the narrative towards someone we believe in that happens to represent that community and that is going to reassure them, I don't want to make it us versus them, but that their interests are looked out for.
So you trust the qualities of that community's leadership in Beirut Madinati to fill the void.
Yeah. To voters that are going to... So people are not going to show up to vote. Those who are not going to show up to vote are not going to be motivated by seeing X, Y, or Z person as the head of the list.
Yeah.
We're banking on on voters that know about the municipal election, that want to vote, and that are hesitating between the traditional vote or the change vote. This is where we can start winning vote, is by people switching votes. But people who aren't gonna go vote anyway, I don't think that without the Zaim calling them and telling them to go vote, they're not gonna get out of bed on Sunday morning.
Right.
This is my personal opinion. I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. At the end of the day, we want maximum voter turnout. Either way it goes, we need to see political participation. We can't keep complaining that nothing changes and we're not using the only tool at our disposal, which is our vote.
I could not say it better than that. Now, to bring this full circle, you've set, I think, the bar quite high and that you want a lot of things to be accomplished. And I think we can both agree that some things are feasible. Maybe other things require everything lining up to favor that.
Yes.
And that is the way you described it. The government does have a responsibility too. And the government is new and it's short-lived too. One hopes this kind of crowd lingers longer. But that said, maybe a best way to describe, I think, what makes the municipality important for you right now. And this can even be just you making the pitch for a functioning municipality and almost a short way of summarizing what the municipality really is for Beirut. We know the word. We know that it's supposed to do work for us, and we know that it's not doing that work. But in essence, why the municipality matters a lot right now. Maybe even like a nod to a voter that's listening.
Yeah. When the municipality works, you can see it. This is where it's so different from politics. The moment the municipality is doing its job, you're going to feel it by the fact that you're able to walk 100 meters longer, that you're able to have a public space to attend, by the quality of the air that is slowly changing, by feeling your streets are safer. So go vote if you want to start seeing a change and being able to live again. Beirut is made for living, not surviving. Today we're surviving in Beirut.
quite eloquent words to wrap it up. Kristy, I know people say that you're the youngest, but I wouldn't have known that had you not told me.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Yeah, now I see
Despite the baby face.
No, it's not. It's no. I think you're actually that's a detail that's irrelevant to the story. You're actually quite persuasive. So good luck on Sunday.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you, Kristy.
Wish we had you as a Beirut voter.
Thankfully, I'm not.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun.